Hello and welcome to the Full Scottish in Inverness. I'm Stephen Cuthill and this week we're here to bring you a report from the latest efforts from the All Under One Banner independence movement.
Don't want to lose her.
Maree, Todd, thank you for joining us. SNP for MSP for Highlands and Islands.
Absolutely, I'm delighted to be here today. Thank you for inviting me along to chat to you.
We were told we've seen a turnout of 14,000 today, so obviously very impressive in terms of numbers. Certainly, you know, as you said yourself, you know, we've seen people come from all over, certainly from all corners of Scotland. So
it's absolutely so there are people here from all over Scotland. It's absolutely incredible. I've bumped into people from East Kilbride, from Stirling, but what's really astonished me is the number of people from all over the Highlands and Islands. So there's a big contingency down from Orkney. I bumped into a woman I know from Skye, lots of folk from Ullapool where I grew up. It's just, you know, Caithness, Thurso, Rossshire, Inverness, obviously. It's amazing. And do you know, Highlanders aren't quick to take to the streets. So to me, that really says we have some momentum going. It's incredible.
It maybe speaks as well for the kind of inclusivity and, you know, obviously diversity that Scotland has to offer.
Absolutely. It's such a diverse movement, isn't it? Yes, I've seen Germans for yes and English Scots for yes, and yeah, great. Yeah, really great.
In the case of Westminster, what it means to be here and make the case for Scotland's voice being heard. And
well, absolutely. So to me, the most vivid example of that at the moment is Brexit, because nobody in Scotland voted for Brexit. And you know, as we've been saying for a wee while now, it's a right boorach, so it's a proper Brexit boorach. You know, they're making an absolute mess of it. There's no such thing as a good Brexit. And we did not vote for it. Our big next door neighbour voted for it, and we're leaving because they voted for it. But the most vivid example today was that call put out for the food banks. So our food banks in the Highlands are short of stuff, and they called for people to bring stuff along to the march. I just find that incredible. We're the 6th richest country in the world, and we have people who can't eat. How can that possibly be? And when we look into it, what we find is it's Tory welfare reform. So the Tory welfare reform, a government we did not vote for, a government we didn't choose, is doing that to our people. Not acceptable.
It's testament to the will of the Scottish people and the resolve to be better and obviously to look out for one another and move forward.
Absolutely, and to be honest, it would take I mean, as I say, Highlanders are not quick to take to the streets. It would need to be a real social justice issue for us to get riled. But, oh boy, do we want a fairer Scotland. Oh boy, we want everyone to do well in our society, and that's not the way it is at the moment.
On the topic of Brexit and the matter of the EU, obviously recently we've seen, you know, the court case with the EU bill and Westminster's efforts to contest perhaps the legitimacy or Scotland's powers in the decision.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And again, you know, when we think back to 2014, we were promised the strongest, most powerful devolved parliament in the world, and here we are 4 years later with a decision that was made almost unanimously, except the Tories, across the whole Parliament. It's a Parliament decision being contested by the UK government. It's quite incredible times. And that is the will of... They're just riding roughshod over our expressed will, however we express it. And they seem to think that they can do anything to Scotland, and they can't. It's not fair, and we won't stand for it.
Well, thanks a lot for joining us and for your take.
Thank you.
On that. Yeah.
Absolute pleasure.
So I'm now joined by Finnie, Green MSP for Highlands and Islands. Thanks for being with us. So obviously we've seen quite an impressive turnout today. 14,000 we were told upon arrival.
Well, I think it's a signal of a number of things. I know there's people who've travelled a distance to be there, and they're particularly welcome. Falchigo Inverness, welcome to Inverness. But importantly, there's people from all over the Highlands too. Now, the Highlands is not a place that's necessarily known for its big demonstrations. This is a very clear signal that the issue of independence is straight up there again. And I think a number of things have driven it forward. The absolute chaos we've seen at UK government level, particularly with regard to Brexit, and that uncertainty. Now, of course, people are wary of uncertainty, and in the past that's an issue that people who support independence like myself have had to address, the concern about that. But I think we know that there's very clearly an appetite to have the issue of independence revisited. Now more than ever it needs to remain on the table. During my speech I commended Maree Todd, the government minister, and I mentioned the issue of tablet. Now, who would have thought politicians are talking about tablet? But that gave a very clear indication. There's someone who has responsibilities, I do as a corporate parent, for looked after children and a display of love like that. Now, people feel disenfranchised for a number of reasons, and one of the reasons is they don't identify with politicians. Now, people will identify with the care and love that they've seen from Maree and hopefully from others. But Boris Johnson, Rees-Mogg, these are like fictional characters out of some 20s spoof film. And what we need to understand is that that disengages people from the whole process. People, in any case, have felt that their voice hasn't been listened to. Now, in the last independence referendum, 2014, I was part of the radical independence movement that went specifically into areas where that was an issue. And I have to tell you that the reception, now as a politician, I'd been at many of these doors anyway previously, people valued being asked their opinion. The opinion of someone living in an area that's identified as in the deprivation index is worth no less than someone living in one of these grand mansions not very far from here. And it's important to say to people, your views matter, I'm listening, I want to hear. It's a big task because of course you are up against the force of the media. The more the media is a great opportunity to expand knowledge, it can be a force for good. But people have disengaged, and it's incumbent on politicians at all levels to engage people. It's not everyone's view, but it's certainly, I think there's an argument to be made to say that Conservative Party aside within the Scottish Parliament, there's a relatively broad social democratic consensus that's delivered on things like childcare, prescriptions, and things like that. And it just pains me that that can't be built on, that colleagues in the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats don't see that there's an opportunity to advance these issues further, rather than ameliorate the damage done. And the constitutional issue does become embroiled in a lot of matters. But we can't run away from it. The reality is we're part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, as I said in my speech. I think it's a deeply flawed state. It's a state that rewards privilege, patronage is rife at all levels. We've seen that with public contracts. I think we've seen a different model apply in Scotland. People can more readily identify with the politicians in Scotland. And that can be about access. I appreciate small is good, and as a Green I would be saying that, wouldn't I? And you know, I would like to see a greater role for local government and to debate the constitutional issue. Why not? You know, the austerities impact on whoever was in charge at Holyrood to disperse funds. So local government has been affected. We need to engage everyone in it. And funnily enough, you know, people who are ordinarily very keen to give their views have shied away from sometimes talking about the constitutional issue. It's front and centre of everything. Politics is about priorities. The priority of the three main UK parties is to spend money replacing a weapon system costing £220 billion. What we could do with that in terms of social housing. I was a councillor in the ward that we're sitting in at the moment there. One of the big challenges I had was dealing with people living in two-bedroomed houses, the overcrowding situation. Now you can have all the rules in the world about a child reaches a certain age and of different genders they have to split rooms. There are still significant problems with social housing. So rather than austerity, we'd taken the role of building our way out of that by building social housing, rather than £6 billion and 2 roads. That means nothing to my constituents across the road. They are my former council constituents, most of whom don't have a car.
In the case of the Supreme Court against Scotland's powers contesting the EU bill?
Well, it's very dangerous, very dangerous. I mean, you know, this is a happy day. I'm not going to stand on a stage and discuss the fine points of, you know, Section 30 orders or the continuity bill. But they're both very significant issues with regard to the overall relationship, and that is the relationship between the United Kingdom and the devolved administrations, plural. Because we were told about a respect agenda. Now, I accept that there are differences of opinion here, but there is no willingness, as we've seen, particularly with the Brexit arrangements, to engage with the devolved administrations. And it is devolution being demolished, the approach that's been taken by the Conservative Party here. And it's, you know, to see our Supreme Court used in that way, And Scotland's a village. People know the politics of the participants. People know the politics. They know where they're coming from. I talked about Lord Keane and I said, you know, he said, could be an independence referendum, well, there could be, yeah. Well, you know, there'll be something that's competent in terms of the devolutionary settlement or not. I appreciate that debate's ongoing, but there's no willingness, there was no engagement that said, you know, the Scottish Parliament was setting aside all the discussions there had been. There's been no discussions. I know that. I'm on a committee that's tried to get government ministers along to understand. I'm on two committees, the Justice Committee, to try and understand the implications for Scotland's independent legal system of withdrawal from the European Union. What does it mean for European arrest warrants? What does it mean for Eurojust? What does it mean for collaboration and cooperation on cross-border crime, human trafficking, obscene crime that needs to be dealt with? And the Secretary of State for Scotland, Mr Mundell, hasn't appeared. Now, we were graced with the appearance on the last day of Parliament of Michael Gove by video link. That's unsatisfactory. This was to deal with another issue very important to someone from the Highlands, and that is about the rural economy and to understand the successor arrangements to the agricultural funding. It's not acceptable. That's contempt from individuals, but more importantly, it's contempt from the institution. Now, you know, the Scottish National Party is a big enough party to look after itself, but you need only, as a Scottish constituent outsider, and I'm represented in the House of Commons by Drew Henry MSP, who works very hard, to see how these people are treated, the discourtesy that's shown there. No, I haven't. It's only second hand I've heard this, but I understand that recently the parliamentary leader spoke about Nelson Mandela to a round chorus of boos. That tells you everything you need to know about where the party of government of the UK sits at the moment. Propped up by a party given a massive inducement, a party of creationists, a party that doesn't believe in dinosaurs, albeit they act like dinosaurs, in any progressive social policies. So, I'm very pessimistic. The only way that will deliver policies that are important to the Greens, these are inclusive social policies. Our strapline in the European campaign was a just and welcoming Scotland. That's what we need. A just and welcoming Scotland will not be delivered under this present regime. It will only be delivered by an independent Scotland, acting along with all the other progressive small nations of the world. Small is beautiful, and a nation of 5-6 million with the progressive outlook that Scotland has would be a beacon for many.
You yourself are obviously an avid campaigner of human rights, certainly when it comes to the issue of Catalonia and Palestinians.
Well, of course, there's a number of causes there. You mentioned two that I'm very interested in and actively involved in, and that is the plight of the Palestinian people, and the same treatment with regard to determination, obviously on a different scale of violence that we've seen in Catalonia, and a declared interest because I have family, including grandchildren, that go to school in Catalonia. And would have said the little Catalan I said far better than me because they're fluent in that language too. I wouldn't criticise the Scottish Government for their position on either of these two issues. I think we've heard very, very strong statements from Scotland's First Minister in relation to both of these. I always try and see things from someone else's point of view, and I get that the UK Government is not wanting to be supportive of Palestinian rights. I disagree with them fundamentally on that. I get that they don't want to provide any succour to independent movements and a nation state of the European Union, Spain. So they don't want to see anything that's favourable to Basque independence, and again I have a close association with brothers and sisters there, and Catalonia as well. But what I do expect the UK Government to do is to respect human rights and to speak out when human rights are breached. Not when it suits them, but on every occasion. Because I'm prepared to roundly condemn violence from any quarter, not selectively choose when to use it. And you know, when a UN report refers to Israel as an apartheid state, and I've been in Gaza, I was in Gaza after the horrendous attacks in November 2012, and it's a human prison, but it's also a very good live testing ground for the munitions that are produced in Israel. The UK has been complicit in arms, providing arms to Yemen, as we know. Now, I have to say, as a Scot, I'm shamed that Raytheon, the firm in Glenrothes is associated with the missiles that are used and causing the devastation there. So I'm not saying everything's perfect in Scotland, and I've raised issues about the role that Scottish Enterprise and indeed Highlands and Islands Enterprise have played in underwriting some of these firms that are involved in the defence sector. I also accept that a battery that works in a car can work in a tank as well, but we need to be very precise and ensure that public monies do not promote the arms industry. Good grief. You know, in the last session of Parliament, the Green Independent Group raised concerns about a prize-giving ceremony in the Parliament when one of the prizes was being given by Lockheed Martin. Now, Lockheed Martin is the biggest producer of arms in the world, and when I raised that issue on behalf of the group with the then presiding officer, I was told Lockheed Martin is an IT company operating in Aberdeen. Now, that may well be the case because, of course, they have fingers in every pie, but that is the reach that these companies have. The power of advertising, the power of manipulation, the arrangements they have with our universities. So, you know, we've a lot to do in Scotland yet with the powers, limited powers we do have regarding issues, and a lot of these issues I've touched on trade, we don't. There's so much more we can do, and independence is the vehicle we can use to deliver it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for being here and joining us today.
My great pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that was our special full Scottish report from Inverness. If you enjoy this programme, please consider going to our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and consider becoming a supporter. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.